to my yet another one of my buses.
Yeah, it's beautiful in here.
This is my parts bus. You're the first one to get an interview on the parts bus. Thank you for noticing it.
Yes, I love it.
That means it does not run. It stays where it is, and it's a little leaning right now. So I'd like to introduce you to everyone. This is Road Mama. Woohoo! And do I have your permission to put your interview on Hippie Stories on YouTube?
Absolutely. Please do.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
So it's very loose here, so however you would like to begin, I'm pretty open. So what would you like to say?
Okay. Well, first I want to say I think this is a great project, and I hope that some of the stories that are shared fill your heart, because I know that that's part of this work that you do, of the heart connection thing.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. Thank you. And I totally, I appreciate that. That's the whole point, I think, is to just share and open the light and love in our hearts, myself and anyone who's interested that would like to contemplate the beautiful gathering of the Woodstock moment, you know. That's such a special time in history, never to be repeated, I don't think.
Agreed.
Never to be duplicated.
Although we do try every year with the anniversaries, but we
can repeat. This is what this is about, in a way, is to ponder that special moment.
To pause. And know
yes,
that Woodstock was here.
Pause and know. Thank you. We forgot to do our little thing. We were going to do a meditation. We'll do it after.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Pause and know that Woodstock was here.
Thank you. And thanks for the drinks.
Yes, of course.
I forgot where I put mine. I put it somewhere. That's okay. So, were you there?
I was not. I was in Sullivan County, though. So I am a mere 59 years old.
Wow.
I was born in 1964. Woodstock happened in 1969. And my family was at a bungalow colony in South Fallsburg, the Metropolitan Bungalow Colony, and we spent many, many summers there for years. But that was I would have been turning 5 in October. So I was like 4 and 8 months, and I have no recollection of anything about Woodstock until I was about 12. And when the concert actually was happening, I mean, it was history in the making, and people really weren't aware of what was going on. So even the people who were at the bungalow colony were hearing things on the radio and on the news about the closing of 17, and their biggest concern was, is our father/husband going to be able to get up on the highway for the weekend to join us at the bungalow colony? We had no idea the impact that Woodstock was going to have on the world. So at the time, it was really not a big deal in Sullivan County until after it happened. And then it became this huge, long-lasting, high energy impact in an area that, I've heard people describe as a magnet of energy, where people come from all over the world, literally, to visit the historic Woodstock site where the 1969 festival took place at Yasker's Farm. So that's part of the story that I want to share today. It's one of the 3 vignettes that I want to share today.
Wonderful.
So I'm going to start with one of the 3 vignettes that I want to share, because I can talk forever and ever, and I'll take up like 3 hours. So I am an orator for sure. So Sullivan County, the home of the Woodstock site, has a long history of a welcoming history. And one of the groups that it welcomed, as everyone knows by its nickname, the Borscht Belt, was the Jewish immigrants from the 5-borough area that weren't welcome to vacation anywhere at that time in the late 50s, early 60s, because of racism and anti-Semitism and stuff like that. And a lot of those people were second generation from the Holocaust survivors. And the Holocaust survivors tended to stick together wherever they lived, including in New York. So, you had little areas like downtown Williamsburg in New York. And the point is that they came up here as a group, and they lived as an extended family. And I don't think that's a coincidence, that energy of the Borscht Belt attracted the energy of the final resting place of the Woodstock Festival.
Okay.
So
Very good.
that's
Very
interesting.
Nice. That is.
So my 3 stories. So I've been here forever. I'm going to be 59 in October. My first summer in Sullivan County at the Metropolitan Bungalow Colony in South Fallsburg, right up the road from the Pines, which is recently burned down, was 1964. I was in vitro in my mother's stomach. She was out to here due in October. My brother was 2.5. It was a heat wave in New York. She was miserable. And her sister and her husband and her 2 kids had gone up to the bungalow colony for the summer. And her sister reached out to her and invited her. So at the end of the day, there were 4 adults and 6 kids living in a 1-room bungalow at the Metropolitan Bungalow Colony, which was very typical and very communal, which I also don't think was an accident or coincidence because of the extended family that Woodstock created and generated till this day. That people still meet at Woodstock and stay in touch and become family, you know, over the years, travel together and live together and grow gardens together and make music together, and it's just an amazing community.
Yes.
All right. So fast forward, I'm like 13 years old, 12 turning 13, and I go to the Woodstock site for the first time with a bunch of friends from the bungalow colony, most of whom were older than us. We were horseback riding friends. And some of the older teenagers, 16, 17, who I'm still friends with today. Hi, Hadley Cashin. I'm thinking of you right now, who owns the horse stables at Villa Roma. He was my babysitter.
Oh.
And I was 13, so he was like 18. And they brought us to the Woodstock site, and we smoked a joint. And it was very ceremonial. And that was no big deal. And a couple of years go by. I live my life. I come back to Sullivan County to go to college. I'm at Sullivan County Community College. And because I had been up here for so many summers, I knew a lot more about the county than a lot of the kids that I was going to college with. They were like not familiar with the area. So on the weekends, I was kind of like a person who would show them where the waterfalls were, or where the, things to do were in this county that doesn't have a lot to do. And so one of the places that I brought them was the Woodstock site, the festival. And there was no monument yet. It was there, but it was like old, decrepit, and broken down, and it hadn't been refurbished yet. So you'd have to like dig through weeds and clear stuff away to find it, and like you'd have to like show them where the names of the bands that performed were. They'd be like, look right here, it's Grateful Dead, and stuff like that. And like probably, I don't know, maybe once a month on a given Saturday morning, someone would say, let's ride up to Woodstock, and we'll go get a bite to eat, and we'll go up to the site and smoke a joint, whatever. And the thing that's amazing about that, and that's from that day until this day, I have never gone to the Woodstock Monument ever where there wasn't somebody else either leaving or coming.
Nice. Yeah.
Many hours, 4 in the morning, 11 at night, just after it rained. Never have I ever gone there when some tourist or some local or some old hippie or some young kid hasn't arrived or left when we've had an interaction, some conversation.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing when you think about how small this county is.
It is amazing.
And how underpopulated this county is. One spot, and people from all over the world. Yeah. Not
it's
just
a very
like
spiritual place.
Yes.
Very sacred place.
Yes, very sacred
and
place.
attracting lots of people.
Yes.
Yes.
So the most interesting encounter that I had there amongst these people coming and going was about, I guess, 15 years ago. My girlfriend Sue Grotsky, who lives in White Lake in the summertime. Now we were kids together, and now we were adults with our own children.
Okay.
And still in touch, and still bringing our own kids to the Woodstock site. I have so many funny stories about the kids at the Woodstock
we'll
site.
We'll have to do another episode for stories with kids.
With kids, because
yeah.
Woodstock is a huge playground for kids, and it was the one place where for 3 days the kids got to kind of be free and run and take off their shoes and roll in the mud. And my daughter actually opened up Woodstock 25 by blowing the trumpet on the stage at 7 o'clock in the morning, heralding in the first show Jade did.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so we were all sitting there and smoking a joint in the middle of the afternoon, not middle of the afternoon, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and a white Mercedes Benz pulls up. And an East Indian couple in what looked like pretty fancy garb, not necessarily wedding garb, but you could tell that they were either coming or going to something pretty fancy. They were wearing like silk suits and stuff. get out of the car, and I notice it has MD plates on it. Why? I don't know. I just noticed it has MD plates on it. And they come up, and they're kind of just like off on the side, and they're not really interacting with us at that point. And I'm a very outgoing person, and I kind of see them, and I see that they're kind of apprehensive about something. I can't tell what. And I'm like, hi. I'm like, welcome to the Woodstock site. You know, have you ever been here before? And go through my conversation. And to make a long story short, they were there to consummate their wedding by making love for the first time
My goodness.
at the Woodstock site.
Wow.
And they were going to be flying out to their honeymoon in a few hours with all their family, because East Indian weddings are very communal and they last for days.
Wow.
And the family like goes on your honeymoon with you. It's a big thing. But they were carving out time, drove up to go to the Woodstock site to make love for the first time on their wedding.
That's incredible.
And they were looking for a spot.
That's incredible.
And so
Goodness.
the gentleman shared this with us, and the woman was just, silently by his side. And he said, do you know of a place? And the three of us, we just went, at the same exact time, we just went, anywhere.
Anywhere will be suitable.
Anywhere. And then I just pointed out some places where there were nooks and crannies of forestry and stuff where they could have privacy.
Yeah.
And off they went down the hill, and we never saw them again. But yeah, isn't that beautiful?
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, and virgins at their age also, like
Wow.
like you could tell this was like
That's mind blowing.
mind blowing. So that was that story.
Cool.
I'm
Cool
kind of telling
story.
great story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I share that story with people that ask me, because people have asked me many, many times, like people both on the site and also like people who write for River Reporter when they do their anniversary stories or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
I worked in the school system here for years, so I knew a lot of people in the media, and so they would always ask me that question, like, "What's your greatest
That's a
thing
really
that ever
cool
happened
story.
at Woodstock?"
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. It's a beautiful one. Another story. This one is not as intense, but it was very poignant to me at the time. So I was at a friend's house, Clint, who has since passed away. Beautiful man. He lived on a diagonal line directly across from the Woodstock site in a beautiful little purple house up on the hill. He rented that house. And every anniversary, he would have like a mini Woodstock. And it was amazing. He would have, 30 bands over the weekend. He had a huge fire pit. People were, brought in porta potties. They opened up every single festival with the Jimi Hendrix Star Spangled Banner tribute.
Cool.
A musician would play that. It was fantastic.
Wow.
Well, one summer, and I would help like build the stage and do a lot of the cooking there and stuff. So I would always have the kids with me in tow, and they would spend like 4 days there, like camping out. Well, this one year, I met a nurse, Anne, who at that time was like 86, and this is a long time ago, who was at the original Woodstock site, at the original festival.
Okay.
And she was one of the nurses that got flown in by helicopter from Harris Hospital to attend to the festival. And she shared she described herself as very conservative and young at the time of the Woodstock Festival, and a bit weary about landing amidst the crowd to help. She was kind of a little nervous.
Yeah.
And she went on to share with me about the experiences and the stories that she had during those 3 days, and that when they came to helicopter back out that evening, she said, I'm staying. And she stayed for the 3 days. She didn't leave. She was there with the Red Cross mobile, and she said, it changed her whole life, her whole outlook of how she saw people and how she saw the Vietnam War and how she saw music as a catalyst for change, and that she came back so I asked her, I was like, that was, at that time, 28 years ago, and she said she came back every single year.
Wow.
For the weekend of August 15th, no matter what was going on in her world, to pay tribute, homage to her experience.
Yes.
Yes. So, and like she was the oldest person at Clint's, you know, like I was young and vivacious, and she was like on her way at the other part of her life, and I felt very honored to be able to like serve her food and sit and talk with her with the kids, and I invited her to sleep over in our tent that night, but she wasn't able to.
Did you say her name?
Anne.
Oh, Anne.
Nurse Anne.
And so, do you remember anything that, it's hard, I guess it's hard to recall now, but do you remember anything that stood out that she shared with you, like anything?
Just that the conversations about Vietnam, I think, because without her actually saying, like, I think her mindset going into it was that she was supportive of the war because it was supporting her country.
Yeah.
But I think her mindset was shifted by those conversations that in not supporting the war, she was supporting her country.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, she was in her early 20s, a brand new nurse. And so that experience shaped like the rest of her political life, and probably, you know, many other areas of her life, I'm sure. I mean, she was this beautiful older woman, like, you know, talking freely and open-minded and open-spirited, and I don't think she saw herself that way when she was in her young development.
I just saw something recently. There was a general who was serving during the time of the Vietnam War, and he said that he said it was a big mistake, that it was all about money, basically. He said that.
Well, as
In
most wars are.
And I just thought that was interesting that he made an official statement regarding that it was all about money, and it just saddened me deeply because of all the lives that were lost and all of the, you know, as you can imagine, as parents, we're both parents, losing your children to that, and there's always this draft stories. I'm sure you've encountered, you know, people sharing their draft stories. And
yes. Tony, my husband, lost a lot of friends.
Yeah.
He is 11 years older than I, so he was 17 when they were drafting for Vietnam, and the only reason he wasn't drafted was because his father had passed away, and he was head of household.
Wow, that's always the story, is like why
but
you
none of
weren't
his friends
drafted.
came back.
Yeah, I believe it.
And when he shares to this day, like he gets this knot in his throat, he can't share freely about it.
So
He said none of them came back.
And I heard when we bought this property, I heard there was a man who was a Vietnam vet who lived in the woods in a makeshift like trailer / shed combo, because he was too traumatized to live in the everyday world. So he was able to. The owners allowed him to stay in this little wooded section here. I mean, there's so much, right? So much residual impact, you know, and think of the Vietnamese people too, like what they endured.
Sure.
And
the worst
so
part of it all is we continue to be
still,
at war.
We should be at a, don't you think we should be at a place where, hey, let's just everyone accept where we are now as far as land and everything, so no one has to go in and claim someone else's land at this point, you know, just
you would think.
Just like,
but,
all right, let's
you
build
said earlier,
build humanity.
Money drives war. And
but there's got to be a better way. We're creative beings, we're intelligent beings. Perhaps we can find good solutions for all of us to live peaceably in the world. Perhaps.
I absolutely
What's
hold
the
out
problem?
faith
We could try to figure this
that
out.
we could do that.
We could,
but we've never done it
your
before.
Your heart's in the right place, you can do it.
Yeah,
right?
but we've never done it before.
But
History has not shown us that human behavior rises to the occasion of what we're able to do. And I don't remember who the author of this quote is, but the quote is, "There will always be enough water for everyone, but there will never be enough water for greed." And that's where we're at. And I was listening to NPR on the way over here, and with the Ukraine and NATO, and we haven't progressed. We progressed with technology like artificial intelligence and going to other planets.
I'd like to think we're on the path to it, though, because you gotta have hope, you know.
Yeah, and I know so many. I always, like, my defense whenever I get into these debates with my husband, which is on the regular, because he is very entrenched in the idea of until blood spills, nothing changes. That's one of his mantras. And I am entrenched in the idea of only you can change yourself and
be the change. Like
Gandhi, be the change you want to see, right?
Gandhi said, "Be the change you seek."
Want to see in the world.
Right, something like that.
Yes, But I have had the great fortune of seeing pockets and communities around the world through practices that I've participated in, where there are energy workers around the world 24/7 that are doing work that other people might consider futile or silly or ineffective or whatever their thoughts are, but that doesn't affect them at all.
It's happening.
Yeah, it doesn't affect them at all.
Yeah.
They have dedicated their lives to love and to move the energy so that at least we don't go like this.
Shift in the love. So let's get back to our
Woodstock.
third. You said you had 3, right?
Okay, our third story is a little bit sad.
Oh,
I'm warning the viewing audience, and I might become emotional. I don't know during it. I've told this story many, many times.
You can be yourself here.
Yes, I feel completely open and vulnerable, and it's great. So, Tony and I lived in a house in White Lake, New York, which is in the township of Bethel, New York, which is where the original Woodstock Festival site is currently, and it's called Bethel Woods. We bought a home, well, actually I bought the home before I knew Tony, with the plan of retiring and having a place on the lake in White Lake. And we moved into that home a couple years shy of me retiring. We sold the house that I raised the girls in on Hilltop Road. And it was approaching the 50th anniversary of Woodstock.
Oh, yes.
And I was living in Florida part-time. I was a snowbird. I had retired the year before, unexpectedly, prematurely, for many reasons, mostly my dad's health. And so I was in Florida, and it was probably around February, and Tony and I had met a great musical community, and we were getting ready to do some gigging and stuff, and he was like forming a band, and we had met these great guys. I'll name you by name. Gary Croman, Max DeBose, Mark Holman, and my husband Tony Penn. And they met, they were all musicians and all artists, and they got together and they formed this collaboration and this friendship and this group of musicians down in South Florida, in Lake Worth Beach, Florida.
Oh, Lake Worth. Nice.
Do you know Lake Worth?
I've heard friends of mine, Mel and Vinny.
Oh yeah, Mel and Vinny are friends of ours down there too.
Yeah, they said
we hang out with them on occasions.
So I'm intrigued by Lake Worth.
Yeah.
Nice
Hi, Mel and Vinny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned you earlier.
Mel and Vinny, that's
because
funny.
you're also tie-dye people.
It's funny how we know
yeah,
people
well,
that
we met Mel and Vinny through Dan Berger. Dan Berger referred us to them.
Okay.
He said, "Oh, you're moving to Lake Worth? My friends Mel and Vinny live down there."
Wow, very cool. Isn't that funny? I didn't know he knew them too.
Yeah, we do like civil, like during Martin Luther King, they do this whole musical production that I got with them 2-3 years ago now. We did a march and
cool.
Fantastic.
Cool, man.
So we're in Lake Worth.
Yeah.
With these guys, and everyone's into like the whole Woodstock thing. If you're into music, like you know, that when they find out that we're from Bethel, New York, and that we're next to Woodstock, they're like, "What?
Yeah.
You live next to Woodstock?" Blah blah blah. And the like kind of hub bar, the musical hub bar in Lake Worth Beach, Rudy's Pub, hey Mary, is all Woodstock themed.
Whoa! Okay.
Everything is posters of Woodstock. So the first time we walked in there, we're looking around and we say to the owner, Mary, who I ended up working for, and so Tony gigged there and I was a bartender for her.
Oh.
We're like, everything in here is from Woodstock. She's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. She gives me the whole spiel about Woodstock and music, and I listen and I go, well, Tony and I live in Bethel. And she's like, what? Gives Tony a gig right away, falls in love with his music because his music is brilliant.
Yeah.
I sell her my shtick about Road Mama, which is my catering, musical entertainment business that we do, and she hires us.
Nice.
Okay, fast forward. So we're starting to talk about the 50th anniversary. We're down in Florida. It's like February. And we say to the guys, if you guys want to come up, we can put you up. We have a place. And they're like, yeah. A couple months goes by. We're like, okay, guys, it's April. We're going to be heading up like in May. Here's our address. Here's our phone number. This is where we live. This is what's going on. Let us know. Because we run an Airbnb and we won't book it if you're going to come. And lo and behold, these mofos rent a 30-foot motorhome They all hop into different vehicles, drive up to Pennsylvania, get the motorhome, drive it to White Lake, and park in our driveway. And we have like what we called Pennstock. So my husband's last name is Penn, and we were having musicians, and we created an event, Pennstock, on Facebook.
Nice.
And we said 3 days of peace, love, and music.
I've tried to come, by the way.
I remember. You texted us. You texted us.
Because I'm, you know, when you're gigging, you got to make a couple dollars. So
Yep.
I'm sorry I missed it. I wished I would have stopped by.
There's lots of video on YouTube.
Okay.
Pennstock. So we advertised it on Facebook and whatever. This is social media and to our musician friends in the area. The traffic is always crazy during Woodstock weekend. So we were like, this is our address. We're right off 17B. Like, you have to pass us to go anywhere.
That's
to
right.
Hector's
I
or
know
to
exactly where
Woodstock.
you are.
Right. So
Yeah.
we said the grill's going to be going 24/7.
What's that road? It's Route 55 or 2 or
That's 55.
55. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you have 17B and the light 55. You make the left on 55 if you're coming from Pennsylvania, or right if you're coming from New York.
Correct.
And then
we were
you're,
the third
you're
house on
literally
the
like
right.
you blink your eye, you're on the right hand side. And then if someone was to go to the site, they would pass your house.
If they went the back way, they'd pass my
Your
house.
house,
If
make-
they went the front way, there would just be 3 houses off the corner.
Yeah. So, but if they passed your house,
They
made
make
the
the
first left, it's right there.
Correct.
So that's how close
Yeah.
you are.
And we sold a lot of food, and over the years, I mean, that would be a 4 story. We made so much money at the Woodstock anniversaries because we were there. So we would look at the weather and we'd say, yeah, it's Thursday. There's going to be, 100,000 people coming up this weekend.
So when did they let you know they were coming?
Like 2 days before they
Okay,
came.
because I'm.
Well,
like,
one
you know,
person said,
curious
I'm
about
coming, hell or high water.
that. Oh, okay.
Max DeBose.
Yeah.
He said, a dream of mine
Oh.
that is on my bucket list is to play at the Woodstock Festival,
Of course.
at the site.
Yeah.
And he was a singer-songwriter from Texas, Louisiana, Texarkana. He had stories after stories after stories. One of the most interesting men I've ever known. And we also both shared a spiritual path that was not common.
Oh.
So we had a lot in common.
Yeah.
Beyond the music.
Yeah.
And him and Tony were like brothers. Instant brothers. Tony doesn't make friends easily. He's a very reserved person. And him and Max just were like
Hit it off.
sparks. He couldn't stop talking about him until I met him a few years before. Okay, so we have this beautiful setup. We have this huge deck that we've arranged as a stage. We have an overhang. We have the food going. We actually had, because they rented the motorhome, they didn't need our Airbnb rental. So we actually had 4 guests in our Airbnb rental in the house.
Nice.
1 from California, 2 from upstate New York, 1 from I don't remember where. And it was just this huge party. So Max was slated to gig with Tony and Gary and Mark at Hector's
Okay.
on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we were partying, music, food, chilling. Saturday night, we sit down to dinner. Literally, I had like just put the food on the table. Gary's phone rings. A band that was supposed to play canceled, but for whatever reason, they knew we lived up the road. They wanted to know if we could take the 8 o'clock spot. This was like 7:15.
Am I?
Gary looks at Tony. Tony looks at me. I said, go. I'll take care of this stuff. Just go. They put their gear together. They get in the car. They go.
At Hector's, you're talking.
At Hector's.
Okay.
Hector's is, for those of you out in audience land that might not know, Hector's is the local bar that has hosted simultaneous events during the Woodstock anniversaries forever and
Right
ever.
across the street, down a little bit, like a mile.
Walking distance.
Oh, walking distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a mile, but I'm saying
Like a
like,
mile,
you don't
yeah.
need your car.
You know, yeah.
So if you're in the mud at Woodstock for 3 days
And they have-
and you want to change the scenery, you head up the road to Hector's.
And they have like camping now, and they also do drum circles and
A
it's
legitimate
just-
stage.
It's, they have a Thanksgiving kitchen, like a bus comes and then
Right, happy
the
Thanksgiving.
hippie Thanksgiving. That's what I mean. Yeah, so there's like nice activity there at Hector's.
And it's
So-
always been considered like an extension of the Woodstock site.
always, yeah.
And more so once the Woodstock Festival site was bought by Alan Geary and turned into Bethel Woods, which is a gated, ticketed event,
Yeah.
there was kind of a little backlash by the hippie community saying, like, what the?
Like
We need a place for our people because no one can afford to go in there on the budget that we have because we're all artisans and musicians who travel around in buses, and we need a place where we can park our bus and hang out for our Woodstock celebration. And Hector's was that place.
And there's another place across the street, Howard.
Well, now Roy Howard's
Howard's
place has a legitimate campground.
Yeah, it has a campground. She said that was another. So
Yeah.
there's like two places basically.
Right. Yasgur's Road
Yasgur's Road
is what they call that campground. And they have a reunion every year, but that's also a paid event.
Yeah.
Hector's is not a paid event.
Yes, it's not.
And so there's the spirit of Woodstock.
You could just walk in there and just
walk
check
in,
it out.
set up your tent,
Yeah.
cook your food,
I mean, you might
patronize
have to
the
find
bar.
a spot to set up your tent. I don't know what that part's about. But
It's a field.
it's a big field.
It's a big field, and
But you can just go and attend and walk around
Oh,
freely
yeah, sure.
without any
right,
issues.
exactly. And you know, there's been more than one person who rolled up at Hector's with the plans of going up the road a mile that stayed at Hector's for 4 days because they were like, "This is the real Woodstock," and I've heard that over and over. This is the scene. This is what I was looking for. You know,
The experience is what they're.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted.
and a lot of the people there are like, you know, the old Woodstock hippies that come back. So you get to talk to people like we're talking, but
Like
the real McCoy.
Yep.
And get the real juice of what happened at the Woodstock. And some of them are in pretty bad shape
Yeah.
because they've lived a road life for a long time.
Yeah.
But their stories are so rich.
Amazing. Yeah.
And
They have a lot to share.
they do. So, 2 o'clock in the morning, Tony comes in with nobody else. And I'm like, where are the guys? And they're like, oh, they stayed behind. They're partying, you know, whatever the case is. I was like, was the gig good? He was like, it was great. They loved us. They bought a whole bunch of CDs from Max. He told them their story, you know, his story about wanting to play at Woodstock and being on the bucket list. And he was so well received. And he had a real southern drawl. He was good looking with blue eyes.
Oh boy.
And a big black Stetson hat.
Oh boy.
And, you know, the hippie girls were all over Max. And Max was quite the flirt. So at about 4 in the morning, Tony and I are in bed. And, I wouldn't say sleeping because, you know, you don't really sleep during the Woodstock anniversary. And we hear the other guys roll up. And so we get up out of bed and we go outside and they all come up on the deck. And they're all talking about, you know, they can't wait for tomorrow night for their gig. And now everyone knows them.
Oh, keep
Time's
going.
up.
No, keep going.
Okay. Now everyone knows them. And, you know, so it's going to be a great crowd and all this.
I'm shutting it off. Sorry, I forgot to do that. Okay.
And Max proposes a shot, a celebratory shot of Jack Daniels before we hit the hay.
Yeah.
I don't drink, but the guys do. And so they all pour themselves their shot. And they give a toast, and we say goodnight.
Yeah.
And then Mark says goodnight. And then Gary says goodnight. And Max says, I'm just going to revel in this moment for a while out here. And he stays on the deck. Next morning, get up. I put out my bagels. I get everything going. I'm on like this energy high at this point. I'm on day 4 of like, you know, doing what I love.
Yeah.
Making music, singing songs, eating food
You're in your element.
with my beloved community.
Yeah.
And I'm also exhausted.
Yeah.
And my kids are there. My daughters are there with their boyfriends.
Aw.
They're doing crystal washes and meditations
Wonderful.
and Tai Chi on my deck. It was like this whole beautiful thing.
Nice.
And everyone emerges from their corresponding places of sleep. Except Max. Now, Max was the last one to go to sleep.
Don't tell me.
And I think it was Gary said, you know, we got to get Max up. We got rehearsing to do. We got to clean up. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh boy.
Tony went in
Aw.
to the mobile home. And he came out, and he was white as a ghost.
Aw.
And he said, Max not moving.
Oh, so sorry. What a terrible, terrible thing.
But it really was, and I'll finish the story. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. One of our Airbnb guests was a doctor,
Oh.
and we didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
He heard what was going on in the deck, and he came out,
Wow.
and he went in, and he pronounced him dead. And everyone was screaming, call 911, and the doctor said, don't call 911, call the coroner.
Ah.
So I won't get into everything that happened after that, which is a miracle. But the reason why I say that this is a happy story is because Max got to live
He fulfilled
his dream.
what he wanted before he had gone to his next
And
transitional
like,
phase.
it wasn't an easy thing for him to save up to make the trip to New York. He was living with his sister. He had been divorced 3 times. He had a son that he was estranged from for like 13 years that he talked about almost every day, that he missed and loved. And
God love him.
and it took a real effort for him to save the money to come up to New York and to do what he did and to perform at Woodstock and to die at Woodstock.
He died in a happy place, in a happy way, probably. In a happy place, happy way.
Massive heart attack, no pain. The guys fulfilled their gig that Sunday night.
Wow, unbelievable! What
And
an unbelievable story.
we brought Max's hat to the gig and we put it on a mic stand. I have pictures of it. It's so beautiful. And they're playing, and they told him. Everyone was like, "Where's Max? Where's
So
Max?"
we should dedicate this episode to
Max. This is dedicated to
You
Max.
have to send me a
DeBose.
picture,
I will.
and I can use that as the thumbnail.
I'll send you a picture, and I'll send you a link to his music.
Okay.
He's a brilliant
Sounds
musician.
awesome. I'll put that in the description too, the link to Max. And anything else you want, just send me whatever you want, and I'll put it.
So the
Wow.
people were waiting for Max. So
Thank
they
you
were like,
for
"Where's
sharing
Max?
this
Where's
with me.
Max?" And we
That's so
said, we
beautiful.
told them what
With everyone.
happened, and there was all this disbelief. You know, the audience is like, so we put his hat on the mic stand, and they did the gig, and we sold the rest of Max's CDs and T-shirts, and we had him cremated.
Wow.
And his sister came up from Florida, and a series of events followed. Our very dear friend was the person who drove his body to the crematorium, unbeknownst to us, Peggy Johnson. And then we were able to give him a Native American funeral at Kinney Van Weggen's.
Oh, yeah.
And so they let us do a sage blessing in the place.
They're the best.
They're the best.
Wow.
And they charged Sandy like nothing.
Wow.
And
They are
his
very
son was able to
generous.
zoom in. His
Wow.
estranged son
He was.
zoomed into the funeral.
Wow. Oh, I hope there was a healing there.
I
for
think there
his, For the
was.
son.
I think
Because
there
that's
was.
always.
He was the son had a child at that point.
Wow. I bet there was like it's strange how things happen, how healings come, how, thank goodness that happened in a way where it was a positive end result for
His
all
sister
involved.
even expressed verbally, like out loud, she said, "Max came here to die."
Wow. Wow.
She said there was no
And
doubt
nobody
in my
really knew
mind.
that except him, probably.
Probably. She said he came here to die.
And wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
What a beautiful story to hear the whole picture, see the whole thing like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yes, of
We could go on
course.
and on, couldn't
I
we?
know, there's so many stories.
So we'll have to revisit.
The children's stories.
We will revisit.
Yes,
But
that'd be
I
great.
just can't thank you enough for coming out here today and meeting me at my house
Yeah.
and sharing so beautifully. Really, really indebted. Thank you so much.
My
And
pleasure, and thank you for
we
doing
will-
this. Like I said,
my pleasure.
Yeah.
This is something I've been thinking about for years, and I said, there's so much to share. Like this would be nice just to go in the hippie bus and make videos.
yeah,
So it's very simple.
yeah.
I'm not a movie maker. I'm not
Right.
a formal.
But you're a
person.
historian because these are the documents.
I'm a fan. I'm a music fan / musician / mom, basically. Yes, and maybe a historian now
Yeah,
that I'm
because
doing
the documentation
I don't know.
of things like this,
Yeah.
you never know.
this. Yeah.
I mean, I always think of like Bob Dylan's basement tapes. It's like, who would have ever thunk, in a million years? And hundreds of musicians got a chance to redo those works and sing those songs.
Yeah.
Just,
so true.
So you're doing
Well,
good work.
God willing, it will be sharing love and light. That's
Yes.
my goal. Sharing love and light through the hippie stories.
That's it. Amen.